We are returning to Kitten Chronicles. We will start on chapter 3, which is bedtime behavior. Wow, this first day in my new home had been exhausting. It's also nice not to have anyone else to compete with for my new mama's attention. No other kitten but me. The sun went away and I started to get a little nervous. Usually when the sun goes to sleep, I'd play nighttime chase with my brothers and sisters. Then I'd curl up, snug as a bug in a rug, against my mama and go to sleep. It seemed my fears were unneeded. Fuzzy Hair took me into her room with the big cushion in the middle. She laid down, only instead of laying on top of the blanket like Mama always did, she got under them. So sad. Her mama must have never taught her how to sleep on a nighttime cushion. Regardless, she lifted me up and put me on the pillow next to where her fuzzy hair was. I tried to get comfy, but the spot was missing my mama's warmth. So I carefully stepped down the long cushion and nuzzled up against her legs. That was the spot. A few times as my new mama slept, I would get up and explore my kingdom. In one room, there were two smaller big cushions on top of each other. It looked like parts of trees were holding the top cushion over the bottom. If I tried really hard, I could leap up on this wooden box and then spring over to the top cushion. It was nice, but there were no warm legs. I took in a big breath and jumped down to a box and then to the floor. I scampered back into Jody's room and returned to the spot against her legs. Yep, that's the best spot to sleep when the sun gets off work. The next thing I know, the sun wakes up. Chapter 4, my new routine. When I woke up the next day, I had briefly forgotten that I had a new home. For a moment, I admit, I really missed my mama. But Miss Fuzzy Hair picked me up and took me to my bowl. She scooped a little food and then she sat on the sideways trunk that was in the room with the box that talks. Cool. An inside tree just waiting for me to sharpen my claws. This was a castle, I tell you. So my new mama was looking at this box that had flippy things that she kept turning, and she ignored me. What's a cat to do? I approached the sideways trunk and started going to town on the edge. Well, my human did not appreciate my need to sharpen my claws and yelled a new word to me. Jasper. Don't know what that means, so I used my claws to climb up the trunk. She picked me up and held me in front of her face. She said, listen, we don't sharpen our claws on the couch. That's a bad kitty. Yikes, I knew what that meant. My mama would meow that at me sometimes when I was pushing my brother away when it was time to nurse. So I curled up on her shoulder and took a nap. That made her smile. She continued to flip the flaps in her box as her eyes went from side to side. Reminded me of my eyes when I watched bugs scampering across the floor. When I woke up, Jody, I really need to work on remembering her name, was still doing her eye exercises on the flippy flaps. I stretched and jumped down onto the floor to explore my new kingdom. In the room where two big nighttime cushions were stacked, I found this bench in front of a window. I could sit on the bench and look out the window. Do you know what I saw? Everything! There were cars and trucks, but they couldn't touch me. I saw birds and squirrels. I saw people. After watching the excitement, I knew I had overdone it. I needed to rest. Then instead of laying on the bench, I jumped back up to the top cushion. I am the king of the world, I screamed. Jasper, why are you making so much noise? Jody responded. You really need to learn my lingo, lady, I replied. Wow, that really tuckered me out. I decided it was time for a nap. Chapter 5, Hide and Seek. The next thing I knew, I heard that new word being shouted again. Jasper, Jasper, where are you, kitty? Miss Fuzzy Hair hollered. Hey, kitty, that's me. Jody must have named me Jasper. Well, I guess could be worse. She could have named me a dog name like Butch or Fido or Lassie. That would have been so embarrassing. I meowed to let her know where I was, and she came and picked me up and then carried me out to the room with the tree trunk. I thought I was going to take another nap, but nope. She had the stick with a string on it. Oh my goodness. She's going to play with me. I was so excited. She flipped the string and, oh my goodness, there was a fish and a bell on it. Oh, I had every intention of pouncing on that thing and showing it who's boss. Each time I was close, Jody would fling it to the other way. Well, that's not very nice. So I walked away and I curled up for a nap. Jody sprawled out on the trunk and took a nap too. Well, this roommate was going to be just fine because she liked to sleep almost as much as I did. When I opened my eyes, she was still sleeping, so I went to explore some more. Guess what? In the room where Jody's night cushion is, I found this little room that had a high shelf with cushions stacked on top. Now I know that would be one super comfy place to snooze. I leaped up on this wooden box, and at first I was startled because I saw a cat. Now this cat was one of the most handsome cats I had ever seen. Guess what? It was me! There was this magic thing on the back of the box where I could see myself. How cool is that? Anyway, I used all of my energy and I leaped as high as I could, and I made it! After kneading my paws into the pink comfy cushion, I curled up and took a nap. Later, I heard Jody yelling my new name again. I opened my eyes, I stretched, but this cushion was so super comfy, I just couldn't leap down. A few minutes later, she yelled my name again. Her voice started to sound like Mama's human when she didn't know where her boy was. I thought maybe I should jump down. I looked down and I realized that this shelf was way high up. It was higher than the bed, so I wasn't too sure. A few minutes later, Jody found me. Well, aren't you a brave and silly kitty? She said. Silly? No way. I'm a king. I'm a brave lion in training, I yelled back. She scratched my neck, which is hypnotic. She cuddled me to her cheek, ugh. Then she let me lay beside her on her chair that moves. I had no doubt that she would learn that I am not a silly kitty, but I had no idea it would take her so long. Today's final chapter is The Water Police, complete with a picture of Jasper and Connor, who illustrates my picture books. Only he's in college now. Life continued much the same way. We would take naps. She would read books. That's what that flippy flop box was. And I'd crawl up either on her shoulder, her lap, or stretch out on her legs. Life was good. However, it wasn't perfect. A lot of time that chatty boy would come, and Connor was fun enough. He'd play wand and fish with me just like Jody. Plus, sometimes they'd play that game where they'd try to get me by throwing a ball to each other. Just like that, one throw. As soon as I would get to Connor, he'd throw it to Jody. I'd run to Jody, she'd throw it to Connor. It would be fun for a few moments. Then I'd have to take a break and catch some Z's. When Connor would visit, Jody would often fix him this creamy stuff called macaroni and cheese. They never fed me any, but it sure looked yummy. I would go out into the feeding room to try and help her. But, of course, I'm too tiny to see the hot box, so I'd use my leopard leaping skills and I'd jump up on the white floor that's right next to the hot box. Jody must have been one of those cooks who doesn't like help because she would yell my name in a not so nice way. I looked at her and offered my help, but she did the unspeakable. She grabbed the water police. Now, she has one of those in every single room. She would aim and fire. Waterworks came out of like a rainstorm. I shook my head and I jumped down. Well, that's just rude. So I returned to the talking box room and found my comfort on the lap of Connor. Soon the water police would be used way too much. If I jumped up on the talking box, I would be hit with a stream of water. If I jumped on the black box where Jody would move her fingers over a bunch of buttons, she'd grab the police. It didn't take me long to learn that if she started to reach for it, then I'd soon be hit with water. I would jump back to the ground before she pulled the trigger. This made Jody very happy, but it irked me. She chose me to be the king of her castle, so I should have free reign of my territory. Just because she's bigger didn't mean she could be in charge. How rude. And tomorrow we'll return for Chapter 7, a thing called School. I hope you're enjoying Kitten Chronicles. Talk to you later.